What was it like to be a frontline reporter on that day? Alan Murray is now the WSJ Online Supremo, but on Black Monday was a cub reporter and co-wrote the front page article that turned out to be the first draft of history of Black Monday. He recounted the experience to our Paul Vigna a while back. See what he had to say.
On the 25th anniversary of the crash in 1987, I'm here with Alan Murray. One of the reporters that day who covered it wrote the front page story for the Wall Street Journal.
I was 10 years old at the time. I just want to be clear about that.
You're a total cub reporter, right? First big story.
Right.
You know, it's obviously interesting. 25 years ago, it's a sort of a historic milepost. But I wonder, we had the flash crash a couple of years ago. Is the crash in 1987 dead history, or is it still alive?
No, I think the crash, look, people sort of forget it was 508 points. We see 508-point movements pretty regularly these days. They forget what a big deal that was. The
percentage loss.
No one had seen anything like that since 1929. So that was really the beginning of these volatile markets that we've been living with since then, some of it driven by program trading that came out in the flash of the crash. So it was a really big deal. You know, I was covering the Federal Reserve at the time, and Alan Greenspan was Cub Fed chairman. He'd only been in the job for a few months. The markets had been kind of testing him because Paul Volcker had been such an institution, and Greenspan they weren't quite sure about. Greenspan was on a plane flying to Dallas while all this was going on, and he got off the plane and got a call from his office saying the market had dropped 508 points. He thought there was a decimal place in there somewhere because he couldn't believe that you would have a 508-point drop in the market.
Do you think that crash, coming so soon after he had become named chairman, do you think that affected his thinking down the road?
Oh yeah, I think it had a profound effect, because what they did, you know, what's interesting about it is, as I said, it was the biggest since the Great Depression, and the first thought that came to everybody's mind was, oh, we're entering another depression, right? But what really happened was it actually relieved a lot of the pressure that had been building up. There was this fear of inflation that was driving up long-term interest rates. That collapsed. The German central bank, interesting how history keeps repeating itself, was being too tight with money. It caused them to ease up. So it eased, and there was a need for a budget deal on Capitol Hill that wasn't happening. It put pressure on Congress to make all those things happen.
Were you just reading your column from 25 years ago?
Well, I have a perfect memory of 25 years ago.
Because that was basically your column a week later.
I wrote a column a week later saying the silver lining to the crash, because everybody was hand-wringing about, are we going to have a depression? And I said, no, wait a minute. This actually has relieved some of the pressures that were troubling the economy. Probably going to turn out to be a good thing, which indeed in the end it did. But back to your question about how it affected the Fed, they made the decision at the minute it happened to open the spigots. We are going to, I mentioned that the chairman was on a plane. The vice chairman, Manley Johnson, said, we will provide the money the market needs. And the fact that they were able to turn that around was clearly instructive to the Fed and has influenced how they've behaved since.
Now, I don't believe that you were 10 years old when it happened, but I do
I might have been a little bit older than that.
You're certainly a much younger reporter. Just describe to me, what was it like for a young reporter covering an event that big?
Oh, it was shocking. I mean, nobody had ever seen numbers like that, and so you were. And I was an economics reporter and a Fed reporter, and that was the first question my editors were asking me: are we going to have another recession? Does this mean, or a depression even? You know, it was a bigger percentage point drop than the one in 29. So people said, doesn't this mean, when the stock market falls like that, doesn't this mean that we have terrible economic times ahead? And so it took some. You know, I had a group of economists who I really trusted, who I went to and talked to and talked it through, and it took a while for me as a fairly young reporter to get the confidence. But it became clear as you thought about the linkages that it would in the end be a positive thing, not a negative thing, and that's why I wrote that Outlook column.
Right, and you're right. Little vindication.
I got that one right.
You got that one right.
Well, we're not going to remember the ones I got wrong.
No, there's no need to, right? All right, Alan, thank you. Appreciate your time.